Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. Just 3 provinces or territories in Canada have Glad You Report programs for Indigenous offenders. This despite massive over-representation in the justice system. One Manitoba man says the services weren't there when he needed them. Brittany Guillot has that story.
Clint Sinclair is more than just his criminal record. He's a father and a new college student. But growing up, he was surrounded by violence and addiction.
Selling drugs was a way to live, I thought. It was a way to be somebody. All my role models around me were drug dealers.
Some Manitoba prisoners are held here at Stony Mountain, and according to Stats Canada, 3/4 of the province's offenders are Indigenous. So this means that they're entitled to what's called a Glad You Report. These allow judges to take into consideration the offender's background. But only British Columbia, the Yukon, and Ontario are fully equipped to provide these reports. That's something Sinclair learned firsthand here in Manitoba. He didn't get a Glad You Report. Instead, a probation officer prepared his pre-sentence report, which only included a few Glad You factors. University of Toronto professor Paula Maruto says every province should have a Glad You Reading program.
A pre-sentence report does not address histories of colonialism, histories of race relations, histories of discrimination. Probation officers aren't trained to do that. Judges aren't trained to do that. So to suggest that we can just have a pre-sentence report and just add these factors in and there you go, we've solved the problem. We haven't solved anything. We definitely know that Indigenous people are being ranked as a higher risk because of these tools, because of the discrimination, the systemic discriminatory practices that are embedded within these tools. You can't just fix that by adding Glad You factors.
She says this can lead to even harsher sentences because pre-sentence reports do not contextualize the factors in the same way as a Glad You Report. It will be too late for Clint Sinclair, but Manitoba may be getting a Glad You Report writing program. At the John Howard Society, manager of program Sharon Perot says plans are underway.
Particularly in the prairie region, we have an over-representation of Indigenous people. And so my hope is that we're going to gain a better understanding of the population in general, but that person also has an opportunity, the individual has an opportunity to gain a better understanding of why they landed up where they landed up.
For now, Clint Sinclair just wants to be a good role model for his son Adam.
I want to show him that, you know, we don't have to use drugs and we don't have to drink alcohol to be happy. We can be good people. We can walk a better path.
Brittany Guillot, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Lawyers representing the Justice for Stolen Children camp in the province of Saskatchewan are in a Regina courtroom today. The Saskatchewan government wants a judge to order the protest camp to be removed from the legislature grounds. On Wednesday, a powwow was held at the camp. It was first set up more than 6 months ago now. Wednesday was about celebrating and thanking people and not worrying about today's court date.
We wanted to thank the community that has been supporting us all along, and also we wanted to have special dances tonight to honor some of the lives that have been lost in Saskatchewan where justice still hasn't been served.
A financial settlement has been reached with 2 of the 4 men switched at birth in a Manitoba hospital more than 40 years ago. DNA tests showed that Norman Barkman and Luke Monies were switched at birth at the Norway Hospital in 1975. Later, tests also revealed that Leon Swanson and David Tate Jr., who were born at the same hospital in the same year, were also switched at birth. The settlement reached only involves Barkman and Monies. No details are being made public. Spokesperson says the federal government deeply regrets the suffering caused and continues to provide support to all of the individuals involved and their families. The Ontario NDP announced its opposition critics today. including the critic for Indigenous relations and reconciliation. Sol Mamakwa is the first MPP elected to the new Kiiwetinoong riding in Northern Ontario. First Nations make up the majority of that riding. Mamakwa said he looks forward to challenging the Conservative government about issues facing Indigenous people in Ontario. Here's a bit of what he had to say about reconciliation.
Reconciliation is bringing back the responsibility, accountability, and resource allocations to the community, and it's never been there. All we were asking for is equitable access to services such as education, such as health, such as housing, clean water, like what everybody's entitled to, and that's reconciliation.
And we want to hear what you have to say. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/APTN News. Also, you can follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous headlines. Wildfires are continuing to rage throughout British Columbia, and members of one community say they've lost homes. Burns Lake First Nation is about 230 kilometers from Prince George and is in a wildfire hotspot. Fire officials have yet to confirm structural loss, but the community is on evacuation order and alert. Many people on the south side of Burns Lake are staying to try and protect their homes. They want to help, but officials say it's too risky.
Right now, there's up to 200 people that are fighting their own fires.
Right.
On the south side. People aren't allowed. There's police on this side, the north side of the ferry, not allowing people to bring fuel or water to assist them to fight these fires.
The Manitoba government is apologizing to a Northern First Nation. This comes after a new report documenting allegations of sexual abuse and racism at the hands of Manitoba Hydro workers. That report was released earlier this week. The province has now handed the report to RCMP to investigate. As Brittany Hobson shows us, members from Fox Lake Cree Nation say the events from this week have reopened wounds in the community.
The community of Fox Lake Cree Nation near Gillam has been left revisiting traumatic memories after a disturbing report came to light this week. On Tuesday, the provincial government released a report on the effects of hydroelectric development projects in the north. In it, community members described what happened when 4,000 male workers arrived in the community beginning in 1950. One member testified. They would pick up Fox Lake women, take them to jail, and bring all the hydro guys there to do what they wanted with these young women. The province says they received the report in June and this week forwarded it to RCMP to investigate.
On behalf of our government, we apologize for what had occurred decades ago.
However, members from Fox Lake are now criticizing the province's decision to release the report.
What precipitated this event is a minister of the province of Manitoba, without input from Fox Lake Cree Nation, releasing information that has a tremendous impact upon our community members. It has a tremendous impact on all the things that we do, and then not only releases that without our participation, but then suggests some of the remedies.
Rob Ballantyne, who is a director of business and economic development in the community, says Fox Lake has worked hard toward developing a positive relationship with Hydro, despite the claims of sexual abuse against Indigenous women. He says it's not perfect, but the community is trying to move forward.
One thing about our relationship with Hydro is that it's mature and it's a mutual relationship, that we talk to each other actively, and whereas we may not agree all the time, we do have avenues to work those things out.
He says the community was blindsided when the province urged the RCMP to investigate, and that no one from the province has reached out to the community. The events from this week have reopened wounds.
In terms of what we do with Hydro, we do that jointly. We do it together. and it's our desire, if we're going to do anything with the province or RCMP, that we would do things in that manner as well. And that courtesy, unfortunately, wasn't afforded us. And it's certainly part of the pain we're suffering right now.
This isn't the first time allegations have been reported. Robert Wavy was part of the hearings in January, but says concerns have been brought up in other hearings.
Well, I won't say they didn't go anywhere, but it certainly weren't taken as seriously as they should have been. It goes all the way back to other commission hearings on other projects.
In light of the accusations made against police, the RCMP say an independent investigation unit may be brought in. For now, Fox Lake members say they will continue to work with Hydro for ongoing projects such as a kiosk generating station. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
There is a new national chief representing the Dene Nation. More on that coming up after the break. Here's a look at Friday's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, sunny and 23 for Charlottetown and Halifax, 22 under the sun in Fredericton. Rain in Nain and a high of 9, 19 with rain for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 28 under the sun in Montreal, 27 for Quebec City in Southern Ontario, 26 and sunny in Toronto, Windsor and Peterborough. To the north, 21 and rain in Thunder Bay, 24 and rain in Sioux Lookout. In northern Manitoba, a high of just 10 with rain for Puckatawagan, 21 under the sun for Norway House. A high of 30 for Winnipeg, 29 and sunny in Brandon and Dauphin. Smoky and 31 in Regina. Smoke and 32 for Estevan. 13 and rain in Uranium City. 11 and rain for Stony Rapids. Welcome back. For the first time in 3 decades, the Dene Nation has a new national chief. At the annual Dene National Assembly being held in the Northwest Territories, delegates voted in a new leader. APTN's Charlotte Moore-Jacobs is at the assembly and has the details.
Hundreds lined up to congratulate the new leader of Dene Nation. Norman Yakalaya is now the Northwest Territories Regional Chief for the AFN. After a marathon of speeches
that the Dene Nation will not put up with this anymore.
And a long-haul question period, Yakalaya succeeded over candidates Richard Ajericon and Eileen Marlowe. He is taking over for the National Chief Bill Erasmus, who is leaving Dene Nation after 30 years. And spirits are high for the new leader.
I'm still in awe. I'm in awe.
Yakalaya is a former MLA of the Sawtooth. His platform touched on the Dene taking back control of programs from the territorial government.
We continue to allow our people to go homeless. Enough of boarded houses in our communities and their policies that does not allow us to house our own people. It's enough. The funding goes down to other treatment centers. Now we got over here at the old former Nuts HAK. Now it's a the Dene Wellness Program Center. We should be supporting that. Up in the Gwich'in, we're supporting that. In other regions, supporting that. Those type of programs on the land.
The Dene Nation was formed out of the Indian Brotherhood of the Northwest Territories, founded in 1969. They protest the government's controversial white paper, which suggested Indigenous people should assimilate into Canadian society. Some of the original leaders who came to the table at that time were present for this assembly. Now Dene Nation advocates for Dene rights.
I want to let the world know that Dene are strong and good people.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Hay River.
Manitoba, it means to live the good life. And for 4 years now, Indigenous students in Thunder Bay have been learning what that means. APTN's Willow Fiddler has more from their week-long summer camp.
It's a place where youth can meet new friends, try new activities, and make lasting memories.
Well, just to meet new people, I guess, and just to have fun, get outside instead of staying inside, you know, like more like teenagers do. They just stay inside.
At Manitoba Summer Camp, it's also a place to get a head start on the school year. 30 grade 8 and 9 students spend a week camping together. It's put on by Lakehead Public Schools, and Anika Guthrie says it's a good way to connect with Indigenous students in the summer.
So that includes our educators, and then we have the support from the Friendship Center, the Thunder Bay Police, and then many community elders, knowledge keepers, traditional teachers.
The Thunder Bay Indigenous Friendship Center and Thunder Bay Police Service have been involved with this summer camp since it started 4 years ago. Constables Gary Camberley and Bob Simon from the service's Aboriginal Liaison Unit spend the entire week with the students teaching archery.
It's pretty cool. We get to build our relationships when we're not doing the archery. We're following through, participating in the drum making, the beading, the nighttime fires, whatever the events. It's a lot of fun.
Other activities include things like canoeing, sports, crafts, and cultural teachings by the Friendship Center.
We set up different teachings, like drum teachings, the rattle teachings. We bring the big drums out and we get our regalias on and do some dancing with the kids and just really celebrate what it means to live the good life and what Minnow-Bimadzwin means to us.
Minnow-Bimadzwin means living the good life, and Anishinaabe-Moan cultural teachings and practices are an important part of that.
We're trying to just help them to see like how beautiful the First Nations culture is, the Anishinaabe culture and teachings, and then also see how we can apply that in our schools, in our families, in our community.
Youth mentor Stone Yaput says those cultural connections are important for the youth.
It's something my grandfather and my father used to do, but since residential school, my father hasn't really been into his culture as much as he wants to be. I find it really important to learn these things because when we don't learn stuff about 7 grandfather teachings, we become lost.
Camp participants going into grade 9 will spend another week in the classroom, earning a high school credit before the new school year begins.
So that when they get into the high schools, when they're back in those spaces, they know they have that caring adult in the school. They know they have that relationship established already.
I just come here, have fun, just trying to improve myself, become more better, mature.
Willow Fiddler, APTN National News, Thunder Bay.
And we'd like to hear what you have to say. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/APTN News. Also, you can follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest Indigenous headlines. Time for another quick break, and then we'll visit an Indigenous-owned tattoo parlor. Stick around. Here's the rest of Friday's weather forecast. Picking back up in northern Alberta, 14 and rain in High Level, 14 and partly cloudy for Peace River, 26 and rain in Medicine Hat, rain, and 21 for Lethbridge. Over to BC, 20 for Victoria and Vancouver, 20 in Campbell River as well, but with rain, 21 in Smoky for Bella Coola. 20 as well in Fort Nelson, 26 under the sun in Fort St. John. To the Yukon, 14 in Dawson, 13 with rain in Mayo, 14 in rain for Whitehorse. In the NWT, 13 under the sun in Yellowknife, 15 and sunny for Norman Wells. A high of +4 for Sax Harbor with the sun out, 11 and rain in Pawlatuck. In Nunavut, 9 for Baker Lake and Chesterfield, +3 in Cambridge Bay. 4 with rain in Resolute. Sun's out in Arctic Bay in a high of 4. Welcome back. Tattoos have been a part of many cultures and traditions for centuries. Today, contemporary tattoos are common and come in all types of designs. Beverly Andrews shows us a studio in Toronto that wants to make Indigenous designs more accessible while sharing the culture and art.
When it comes to getting a tattoo, the possibilities are endless. But if you are looking for an Indigenous design, Inkdigenous has got you covered. Toby Six is the owner of the Indigenous-operated tattoo studio in downtown Toronto. He wanted to create a space for art, culture, and of course, tattoos.
The idea that came together to make it more than just an ordinary tattoo studio was to promote Indigenous culture for what it truly is, instead of having all of these stereotypes or appropriation.
You can get any type of tattoo you want here, but for Indigenous-specific designs, Ryan Bisito says this is the place, because the artist will work with the clients, elders, and other Indigenous artists to get the artwork right.
I think that when engaging with an Indigenous artist, they can then share their story, they can then share their experience with the art, and when you go to, or if you go to a non-Indigenous shop that's doing Indigenous work, there's face value and that's it. There's no education behind it, there's no sharing, there's no reciprocated learning that happens.
Teachings and the special meanings behind some of the symbols and designs is part of the process. Even the flash designs are created by Indigenous artists. Ivy Ashkewi likes the atmosphere Inkdigenous is promoting.
It's more authentic and meaningful. And when we did the chess piece, we talked about it, and he understood where I was coming from and how it was part of my culture, and he filled in like the little things, you know?
But it's not only Indigenous clients looking for this type of work. More and more non-Indigenous people are seeking Indigenous designs.
The first question they ask is, I'm non-Indigenous and I'm looking to get an Indigenous design, and I want to make sure that I'm not appropriating, and I wanted to come and see an Indigenous tattoo studio, you know, so I can support the Indigenous art and the culture. For
Inkdigenous has had clients from across Canada and inquiries from far away as South America and Europe, keeping culture and art alive, one tattoo at a time. Beverly Andrews, APTN National News, Toronto.
Wow, it hurt watching that tattoo on the spine. Good for Ivy. That's your APTN National News for this Thursday. For News Anytime, including more on the allegations being made against Manitoba Hydro, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.